Good evening. More absolute bullshit from Yvette Cooper and Sir Keir Starmer today in the Commons. They made out it was going to be a big statement. They made out to the press, to the media, that there was going to be a U-turn. This was no U-turn whatsoever. This was just a continuation of the cover-up of mass rape of white girls by Pakistani Muslim gangs. Why can't they just say, we'll have a full inquiry and get this sorted? What they actually said, or what she said, because Sir Keir wasn't there, more about him in a moment. Good evening, by the way. Thanks for joining me live. This is the John Gaunt podcast, of course. Sir Keir wasn't there. We'll talk about him in a moment. That was a disgrace. But the cover-up continues. Basically, they're going to look at 5 towns, 5 cities, when we already know this has been happening in 50 towns and cities right across the United Kingdom. And in fact, at the moment, it's only in England and Wales. Well, doesn't it happen in Scotland or Northern Ireland? A complete and utter disgrace. Look, if you want to comment, just comment on the side. Feel free, and I'll read out your comments, and that will help the debate. It is the John Gaunt podcast stroke live stream, and I'm reacting almost as soon as this has happened today, and I want your views. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only that, did you see, I don't know if you've seen it live, but the woman behind Yvette Cooper, when she was doing a heartfelt concern for these poor girls, lowering her voice and getting the old quiver in there as well, there's a woman behind her texting like a teenager on amphetamine speed. What disregard. What a disgrace. What an absolute disrespect for the victims stroke survivors. I couldn't believe it all the way through. This bird is texting. I don't know who she was. I never recognised her. She must be one of the new MPs that Sir Keir has brought in. But Labour should hang their head in shame. They're going to bring in Louise Casey to look into this. Basically, they're kicking it into the long grass. Do they think we're bloody stupid? Don't answer that question. But obviously, they do. They obviously think we are stupid. And they treat us with complete contempt. But it's not about us. It's about the victims stroke survivors. Come on, let's have your comments, please. Your views on what's gone on today. There has now definitely been a cover-up. What has Sir Keir, two-tier Keir, got to hide? And have you noticed every time the proverbial is going to hit the fan, he's not here. He's out of the country. Where is he today, Gaunty? He's in the Ukraine talking to that ace Democrat, Zelensky. He's given him more of our money, millions, maybe even billions of our cash. He said basically he wants a 100-year relationship with Ukraine. When Donald Trump gets in, it'll be lucky to get 100 hours, because Donald Trump is going to sort out Ukraine and Russia as soon as he comes to power. So why on earth is Sir Keir Starmer, trying to upstage the new leader of the free world? Well, because he's an absolute narcissist. He's ego-driven. Did you see what he was wearing? He went over there in a suit, but then a sort of a crew-cut jumper. I suppose to be down with the revolutionaries, because Zelensky never dresses up, does he? But then later on, he had a suit and a tie on. He just doesn't do casual. He should speak to his personal dresser, Lord Ali, the man who buys his suits and his glasses. Get some fashion advice. But anyway, he's out of the country again. And it can't be a coincidence, can it, that he's gone when this was going to hit the fan. He must have known what Yvette Cooper was going to say. And I thought with all the pressure from people like, I've got to say it, GB News, they've done a brilliant job on this. And Charlie Peters, people like that, and Maggie Oliver. I thought, well, when she was coming to the Commons today, it would be a full U-turn, and she'd say, okay, I've understood, I understand the public outcry. Because again, if you believe GB News, there was a survey. 73% of people believe there's a cover-up. They believe there's a cover-up. The only way to solve that suspicion and those conspiracy theories is to shine a light on it, which is to have a full public inquiry just about the Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs. But did you see the way she started her speech? She talked about all the abuse that has been going on in the past 12 months or however long it was. And again, she basically said it's happening in all communities, which, yes, it is. But what we want you to talk about now, Tinkerbell, is just talk about these grooming gangs, because this has been going on for too long. And I'm sorry, I believe that your party, the Labour Party, have definitely turned a blind eye to it because they didn't want to upset the Muslim bloc vote. Is that going to get me suspended? Is that going to get me cancelled? I don't really give a shit because it's what I believe. And I think it's what the majority of people in this country think. The majority of people in this country are not racist. They're not anti-Muslim, but they want everyone treated the same. Now, if it's a fact, which it clearly is now, that these gangs, these rape gangs, are predominantly of Pakistani extraction, Muslim. And they even say now it's a certain part of Pakistan they're coming from. Well, there's no point in denying that, is there? You need to recognise that and say that's a problem we've got to solve. I'm old enough to remember Sir Paul Condon. He used to be the Met police commissioner. He once talked about street mugging and said the reason they stop so many young black kids is it's normally them mugging people in the street. And he also made the point they're also the victims. I remember talking about this on BBC London, and loads of my black female wives, mothers, rang in and agreed with him. And then he followed that up by saying, if we were going to have a purge on burglary, it'd be mostly white Essex boys would stop. Well, these are truths. There's a bit of stereotyping, but there's truths. So why do we all get worked up about it? And in this case, it's even worse. We know it's Pakistani Muslim gangs who are doing this. How much more evidence do you need? So I really thought today she'd do this amazing U-turn. They'd take a bit of stick for it, and then Starmer would get a pat on the back. But no, Starmer now has basically got another bucket of shit and poured it all over himself. He won't recover from this. He won't. You wait till you see the press tomorrow. You wait till you listen to your phone-in programs tomorrow. The British public believe there's a cover-up going on. They believe that Labour are doing the cover-up because it's mostly their towns and their cities where it's happening. And what does Yvette Cooper and Sir Keir Starmer give us? An inquiry into 5 different towns. Now, we already know it's happening in over 50. How does 5 solve it? Before this war, Ukraine was seen as the most corrupt country ever, says Peter. Well, I'm not sure it was the most corrupt, but certainly Zelensky is no saint. Certainly not. He closed down a lot of the media. That's a fair point to make. Grooming or rape gangs, says Devil Shyster. Well, I call them child rape gangs. She called them groomers at one point. Then she went on and said it was rape. But she started off basically saying, look, it happens in all communities. Well, yes, it does. And now and again, it's happening in the white community where there's been a gang. But this gang phenomena part of it and the extreme violence that's being used seems to be predominantly Pakistani. And if it isn't of Pakistani origin, we'll find out that by having an inquiry. Tommy Tinkler says, do you think some MPs were joining in on the abuse? Probably. Well, we know councillors have been involved. And that Lord Ahmed, who Labour made a lord, he got done for sodomising a boy, didn't he? I'm not saying that all Muslim MPs or all Muslim lords are abusers, but certainly went on. But then it also went on with in Rochdale with that big fat bloke. Remember him, Cyril Smith? And he was as white and pasty as they come. But in terms of gangs, yeah, I would imagine so. And then my own home city of Coventry, I was disgusted to hear what they've said. There's a guy there, he's the deputy leader of the council, his name's Gaunt, Muslim, I presume. He said, no, I've never heard of it. It doesn't happen in Coventry. Absolute bullshit. This was happening in Coventry when I was in a children's home, and that was over 40 years ago. It is happening in Coventry. It has happened in Coventry. It's happened in 50 other towns and cities, and not all in the north. Aylesbury, Oxford, everywhere. But why is Yvette Cooper and Starmer still pretending it's not a major problem within that one community? It's about the Muslim bloc vote. So they've got Louise Casey to investigate. So she's going to spend 3 months working out how to investigate. I'm not having a go at her, by the way, but this is kicking it into the long grass. She's also then going to talk to there's going to be 5 separate inquiries into 5 towns, one of which will be Oldham. But Yvette Cooper didn't say who are the other towns or cities. It was very vague, right? And then if she finds this phenomena, which we all know is there, she's then going to say, let's have a full national inquiry. So what does that do? It just gives people no justice. Because I'm a believer, I don't know whether you are, justice delayed is justice denied. Some of these girls are now mature women. They might have been 11. I think 11 is the youngest I've heard of, or 12 when they were first sodomized or raped, had bottles shoved up their orifices, broken bottles, a whole range of sadistic attacks by these bastards, right? Who seem to be protected by the holy ring of Muslim or the Prophet. Now, listen, I've got nothing against the Muslim religion. Well, apart from I think it's rubbish. But I think that about my own religion, Christianity, and I think that about most organized religions. But we can't have a position where Muslims have got some kind of protection. And then how many times do we see people say, well, I didn't know rape was against the law in this country? You what? What? And meanwhile, we've got the doors open, haven't we? We're letting in more of these people all the time, both legally and illegally. Surely we've got to say, no, if you want to come and live here, you're going to have to subscribe to what we believe in. Doesn't mean you've got to give up your God. But we're not having your religion as any kind of justification for foul, abusive behaviour. What's Rob Fox says? Remember the list of Keir's crimes I posted? It gets clearer every day. It's only the tip of the iceberg. Well, he hasn't been convicted of any crime, Rob, so I think you should be careful what terms you use. London, none reported. Has Khan covered up that, says Stuart Ross on YouTube. Well, I found it unbelievable that London hasn't got any cases of this. I found it incredible. And I mean that in the only way you can say. It's bizarre, right? Birmingham, Oxford, Aylesbury, Coventry, Bradford, or Rochdale, Rotherham, but not London, which is now predominantly ethnic. I don't know what's gone on, and I shouldn't be laughing, but it's all wrong. It's all wrong. Devil Shyster says, am I the only one on here? He's on Twitter. You might be the only one on Twitter commenting, but there's lots of people now commenting on YouTube. It's probably best to watch me in the future on YouTube if you can. John Gaunt TV is the channel. Can I say a big thank you to all of you who've been helping me out as well by buying me a coffee. That really, really does help. And if you'd like to do that, it's very, very simple. Just press just write in www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. I've got some of the names coming up now. And don't forget, these are audio podcasts as well as visual. So if you're listening on the audio while you're walking the dog, and maybe you're listening later because these are live shows, but you can listen to them whenever you want, feel free to check out my YouTube channels because all the videos are there as well. Paul Crane says, good evening, John. Good evening, Paul. That's on YouTube. Lee Smith's on Facebook. There is an argument to be had that Islam should be banned from Western countries. Islam hasn't changed, unlike other faiths, through the years. Well, I think what you're trying to say there, Lee, and I understand your point, it hasn't had the Reformation, which, of course, Christianity had. But I don't think that's necessarily a reason to ban it. I think it's ridiculous. I think the idea of getting however many virgins it is daft. But then I think the idea of Jesus Christ getting back down from the cross and coming back to life is as well. But if people want to believe that and it makes their life more fulfilled, who am I to criticize that? Do you see what I mean? It's only when it impinges on other people. And I think some people, a lot of Muslims probably are disgusted about it, but maybe they're scared to talk out about it. But you see, let's not just concentrate on the perpetrators, the people who are actually raping the children predominantly. Let's also talk about the heads of social services, the heads of schools, the judiciary, the top coppers. None of them have been in a court of law and had to answer in front of 12 good men and true why they didn't do anything. And I'm sorry to be a cynic, but I've got a pretty good idea that some of them were probably abusing these girls as well, regardless of the color of their skin or their so-called religion. But these people, even if they weren't doing the abuse by turning a blind eye, they're facilitating. It's like that scumbag Hugh Edwards, isn't it? The newsreader. He didn't get sent to prison, even though he was looking at babies being penetrated, right? Right? That's what he was looking at, yeah? But he didn't get sent to prison. But it's people like him, it's perverts, filthy perverts like him, that create the market. So if he didn't look at it, if he wasn't getting his rocks off to that, there wouldn't be a market and there wouldn't be kids being abused. I mean, have you heard these horror stories where people go on and they watch parents getting their kids to be abused in places like the Philippines where they haven't got money? I think the people who do that are disgusting. I think sex tourism is a disgrace. Don't you? So I'm not suggesting that abuse is purely in the Pakistani Muslim community. It's not. But it's because we're so laissez-faire about it, because Hugh Edwards doesn't get sent down, that somehow it's everything goes. Like little Sarah, the girl, Sarah Sarif, whose dad abused her, tortured her and got 44 years. The bastard should have swung. He should have done the Saddam shuffle. This doesn't deter people, but it just gets rid of them. Why do you want these people? I mean, today, the BBC have been lauding a so-called, grime drill rap artist, right? Guy who killed young Harry. He's now come out. He's got a video and he's being promoted by the BBC. He got sent down for 14 years, but of course they don't do their time, do they? It's like the Rotherham gang. Is it Rotherham or Rochdale? One of those places. The gang got sent down. They didn't. They're now out. They were meant to be getting deported, and they haven't been. So one of them is now an Uber driver or a Deliveroo. I think that's what it was. Imagine you open the door and you were viciously raped when you were a kid, and it's him smiling at you through his filthy teeth. He should have been deported. Now, I'll give Yvette Cooper some credence here. She says they want to deport these people now, and they're going to talk to Pakistan about it. Pakistan has already said, we'll have them back. You know what Pakistan will do? They won't waste any money on prison. And good on them. And who gives a shit what happens to them? But you watch, all the human rights leeches will come out and say, oh, no, we can't send them back there. They're going to kill them. It's like that Jamaican. Did you see him? He's had holy relationships with women while he's been here and raped women. And now he says, oh, no, I'm bisexual. You send me back to JA, they'll kill me. I'd say, bye. Chucks away, Stelios. I don't give a shit what happens to him. Do you? But that's where we're wrong. People take advantage of our liberal attitude. And whilst I'm on that subject, I talked about this in my podcast yesterday. When did the woke take over? And when did it become so wrong to be right? Either to the right of politics, I'm not talking about far right, but right, conservative values, proper, they don't even know what they are now. Bad enough. Did you see her speech today? What a farce that was. But it's now wrong to be right. You can't be right wing. But hold on a minute. Donald Trump is just been elected. The whole of the world is going to go that way. But of course, if you believe The Guardian and you believe some of the newspapers, it means we'll all be goose stepping down the mall next. No, it doesn't. It just means you believe in small government. People looking after themselves. It doesn't mean you're a fascist. But you see, that's what Starmer did during the riots, which I find really interesting. Starmer didn't bother. Have you noticed this? Make a note of this. Starmer didn't bother having an investigation with Dame, whatever her name is, Baroness, what's her name? Got it here. Louise Casey. He just said to the police, go and lock those bastards up. And then he obviously told the judiciary, give them 2, give them 3 years. Then he had the cameras in court, so you saw the bewigged buffoons handing down the heavy sentences. Now, some of those people deserved a custodial, of course. But the other ones, the hurty words ones, are you happy with that? And the way that's developed, we've got a more of an authoritarian government, and they're allegedly socialist, than we had if there was a far right one. I just find it completely bonkers. And the thing with Labour, what is their problem with Muslims? And it is a problem. They have got racism in reverse because they somehow think all Muslims are great. All white people are yobs. No, all white working class people are yobs. Anybody who puts the flag of St. George outside their house during the football, fascist, right? But if you have a Pakistani flag and go to the cricket, you're not an Islamist, are you? No one would ever dare say that. And no, and you shouldn't either. That's why Tebbit was wrong when he had his cricket test. He said, if you want to know where people's loyalties are, watch them when they watch cricket. What a load of fascist shit. That was just nonsense. It wasn't even fascist, it's just ridiculous, right? I've got a Pakistani mate who supports England football, because we're not too bad at that, but would never support us at cricket. And good on him. I don't think he's even been to Pakistan. It's like I've got some mates to the Caribbean. I've been to the Caribbean more times than they've ever been there. In fact, I've been there more times than they've eaten rice and peas. But they come on with the big one, with all the Rasta speak and the patois. That's okay. And they're going to support Jamaica when they do a sport they're good at, which is most sports. Certainly running, sprinting, and bobsleigh. Yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it? That doesn't matter. But the Labour Party and now this government seem to think being a Muslim is like a get-out-of-jail card. He was scared stiff to say it today. And it's not as if this is all being made up. Look at the Muslim Pakistani MP who wanted to bring in a blasphemy law. Didn't want anyone to be able to attack somebody's holy books. Like I've just said, I think the Bible's crap, and I think the Quran is as well. Right? I'm probably ignorant for saying it, but does that deserve me being locked up? No. I think I told you, when I was on BBC London, somebody sent me a copy of the Quran. And about a week later, they sent me a text, and it wasn't a text in those days, an email. John, you haven't mentioned I sent you a Quran. I said, no, why should I? Oh, I wanted you to read it. You got 2 hopes, mate. Bob Hope and No Hope. It was quite a thick book, so it'd be quite good if my coffee table was on a slant or whatever. One of the legs was a bit dodgy, but I wasn't going to read it because I'm not interested. Look, I want our kids to be educated on all the major religions, of course. I don't particularly care if they're making Diwali lanterns with the Hindus. Don't really mind. But I don't really need them to be told all about Eid and Diwali, really, do I? No, I don't. Because we live in a Christian country. They should have a knowledge of it. But it shouldn't be, oh, we're going to have a day off today for Eid. I remember that I was in Wales. I was in Morocco. And we went for dinner with my mate. He was loaded. He took us to this really posh restaurant. And the waiter was so stroppy with us. So at the end of the night, I said, what's his problem to the boss, Mustafa, or whatever his name was? And he said, oh, I do apologise. It's Ramadan, and he hasn't eaten. He can't eat for another 5 minutes until the sun goes down. I said, well, he shouldn't work here then, should he? He shouldn't work here if he's going to be stroppy and arsey. Mind you, you can still drive a bus and a tram, can't you? And a train, a tube, and not eat all day. That's a sensible idea. Lee Smith, there's an argument. No, I've read that one out. Devil Sharster says, thanks, John. Niven Casey, big old listener of mine. The non-establishment responsible media has to keep being a dog with a bone as far as this is concerned, John, and not stop until the full truth is uncovered and all the victims receive justice. You're absolutely right, Niven. And I'm not going to give up. And I don't think GB News will give up, or Talk, whatever it's called this week. They won't give up. What's really interesting is that the newspapers have, more or less. Even the tabloids. It's no longer the main story. It will be tomorrow, thank goodness. But we're talking about the industrial rape of thousands of young white girls. That's front page news forever until we get the perpetrators in court and then found guilty and sent down or deported. Shouldn't it be that? But you see, there's the next problem. I often found when I worked for a major newspaper, you had to be careful what you said about Muslims, because who run most of the news agents and the post offices and were the distributors of the papers? Now, the papers don't have the power they used to have. But imagine this discussion about the rape gangs if Elon Musk had not bought X / Twitter, whatever you want to call it this week. We wouldn't be having this debate. I mean, I'm worried sick about what I put in my titles in case YouTube pull me. I don't think Twitter, X will pull me at the moment. But I know some people have been writing to me on other things that I've talked about, and they've said, oh, my comment's been deleted. All I can say to you is on YouTube, I'm not deleting anything. If I think what you're saying is out of order, I'll just tell you. And then we'll either have a debate, and then if you're rude, I'll just get rid of you. But I'm not being a censor. Andy George, hi, John, late to the show. What have I missed? Oh, yeah, Andy. Hold on, everyone. Andy's such a lazy bastard, right? He's only just got here, and he wants me to give a recap. I'm pulling your leg, Andy, but thanks for joining me. Who have we got there? I'd say it's fair to have the lethal injection death sentence for paedophiles and sexual offenders. They won't change. So be off with them, I say, says Lee. I'll take a few more comments and then I'm going to stop. Today is a terrible day, not only for the Labour Party, and it's the end for Starmer. I don't care what Starmer thinks. He's not going to survive much longer. Let's look at what Starmer's got to cope with. He's not giving us a full public inquiry, so he's insulting the survivors. Today, he rubbed salt into those wounds, and that hurt. He's also got, on Monday, the trial of the man allegedly, got to say that, who killed the 3 girls at Southport, who's pleading not guilty. On the same day, the 20th, of course, the day of Trump's inauguration, he's got that councillor, Ricky, in court, who once said that that parts of his community should slit the throats of other members of another community, him. And then the guy who killed the British soldier, he's up in court. Keir's going to find it difficult getting through that, because one of the big questions about Southport is, when did you, and Yvette Cooper, know about the ricin manufacture, alleged ricin manufacture, and the finding of the terrorist handbook at the accused house? I would suggest, as he's the Prime Minister, he would have known within milliseconds. So why did he not tell everyone, listen, we know about this person, we know what's going on, we're going to sort it out, but he's not an illegal immigrant. He's not a Muslim. Because at the time, they didn't think he was. They could have said he's from Rwanda. But instead, they made out he was a choir boy from the valleys. And then, of course, there was an information vacuum. I'm not going to stop saying this, because Lord Carlisle's brought it up, and also his own terrorist czar, Starmer, saying, if you leave a vacuum, then people will fill it. And then, of course, he comes, lays the wreath, runs away Then he does the big one about it all being the work of the far right. When I said at the time, it's not the work of the far right. There will be far right elements, I guess, unless you think Nigel Farage is far right, which I don't. He's in a legal democratic party. But it was people who were very, very angry. I was very, very angry. The slaughter of innocence. Forgive me. Little girls dancing to Taylor Swift. That makes me angry. I can't help that. It makes me really angry. And then we look for who we think's done it. And if we're not told, no wonder it kicks off. So I think Sir Keir is partly responsible for those riots. But I think he used the riots as like, oh, fantastic. Because then he could suppress us. And then, of course, the latest thing is now they don't want us to talk in pubs. They've more or less ruined the pub and hospitality industry anyway, with the rises in NI. You know, oh, we're taking them. What did they say? They took 10p off a pint, but your costs are going to go up through the roof on everything else. They don't want us to assemble. They don't want us to talk, which is why even today, she couldn't resist it at the end of Yvette Cooper. She tried to put the boot in again to Elon Musk and social media. I said a few days ago, are they on a death wish? They're not going to win against Elon Musk. And the fact that Trump is going to be in power, properly in power on Monday. That's why Starmer's not going. That's why Mandelson will not be the ambassador. And if he is, he'll be about as much use as a chocolate fireguard because Trump ain't going to play ball. And you know what, Sir Keir? Not everybody lives in your socialist, soft, quasi-uber-liberal world where everything's fair. As real people, we know that life isn't fair. Sometimes you get dealt a shit hand and you have to deal with it. Well, wake up, smell the coffee, buy me one if you want, Sir Keir, because Elon Musk is more powerful than you. And I'll tell you one thing for certain, Donald Trump is a hell of a lot more powerful than you. And we need America. You can't trust Europe, can you? That's falling apart. That's bankrupt. What, you want to side with the EU against Donald? No. Let's have some realism. And let's have some pride in our great country. Everybody wants to live here. If you want to live here, you've got to abide by the rules. We're not going to change the rules for you. What other country would do that? They wouldn't. Even Sweden are getting tough on this now. It's just madness. And let's just have one law for all, not two-tier Keir. Why are you so petrified of Muslims? And why are you racist in making out that all Muslims think like the nutcases? Because they don't. They don't. So why don't you do it? And why don't you help the community? If they know where these extremists are and hotheads, they're probably scared. So we probably need to give them help, support to come forward. I've told you this story before. I'm going to tell you it again. Do you remember when Captain Hook, Abu, whatever his name is, was causing all that fuss at Finsbury Mosque? I was talking about that. He was preaching outside, and they had a bloke phone up from the mosque and says, John, that's not the normal congregation out there with him. They're all the idiots he's brought. We don't want him there, but the police won't move him on. This was the bloke who only had one hand, Captain Hook. Do you remember him? He's now in a high-security prison in America. Long may he remain there. He hated our country so much, only had one hand, but he still managed to pick up a fucking dole check every week, didn't he? He was taking the Michael. And that was the beginning. And that's where we are now. We've got a situation where people have got their hand out, taking money off us, and then hate us, hate our very way of life. But see, Sir Keir, I think, actually in the back of his mind, I think he thinks everybody's like that. Well, I don't think every Muslim's like that at all. I say weed out the bad uns. And also I say in councils, not every councillor's a baddie, just like not every social work, well, not every social worker is a sexual abuser. Weed out the bad apples. Not every policeman is a racist. Like we had the two Manchester yobs. They've been in court today, haven't they? They've been adjourned until February the 13th, I think. But, why do we pussyfoot around? Somebody gets killed. If it's a black kid who gets killed, we know straight away, fat, pasty, ginger-haired guy speaking with an accent, probably from Bermondsey, right? That'll be the BBC News. Fat kid from Bermondsey with ginger hair gets killed. Police are looking for witnesses. And you know full well what that means, don't you? It's probably a black perpetrator or Muslim. And I just think that's wrong. Describe what they are. Let us help. Let us be involved. I think this is what, and in the end, this is what Sir Keir Starmer is worried about. If he opens this completely, it's going to be those kinds of illogical Labour logic that's going to be exposed. Because there's no justification whatsoever for treating a Muslim criminal, rapist, whatever it is, differently to the white pasty lad with ginger hair from Bermondsey. If you live in Bermondsey, don't have a go at me. But do you understand what I'm talking about? And that's what they're worried about. And they think they can pull the wool over your eyes again. They think that we're going to accept what they did today. And I'll tell you just one final thing on this. Did you see how many people were in the house? Hardly anyone. That's how seriously they take the industrial rape of our daughters, our children. That's how serious they take it. It's an absolute disgrace. Do you agree with me? And so finally, I'll finish with this comment. Niven says, Rakib Edson, he's the guy from Luton, isn't he? On Spiked wrote about this and also about the forgotten Sikh and Muslim girls. That's true, who got done as well. He's a Muslim who's disgusted by this whole situation. Yeah, I was watching my very good friend from years ago, Taj Haji. I was the first person to give him media exposure. He's from the old Oxford Islamic Centre, and he's seen as a liberal. They had him on Martin Daubney's show today on GB News, and he's disgusted by it. And he was making the point, if there were white kids, white Christians, this would have been stamped on ages ago. You can't pussyfoot around because the indigenous population or the majority population, Sir Keir, haven't you noticed? They're getting pissed off. You didn't get a vote last time. You're low in the polls. Nigel Farage is breathing down your neck. If he had a party and he had enough people to stand, you wouldn't get elected. So I don't think Sir Keir Starmer is going to survive. I mean, I think he might even go before Rachel or Reeves. Let's see what happens on Monday. Let's see what happens. But I want to do a podcast where I don't have to mention him. But if he carries on acting like this, you've got to say something, haven't you? You've got to stand up and be counted. I just want everyone to be treated the same. And more than anything, I want justice for every single one of those thousands of girls who've been raped and mutilated and had their lives ruined. I want justice. And that justice has to be not just for the rapists. It has to be for the people who knew it was going on and turned a blind eye. I mean, I'd investigate that councillor, deputy council leader in Coventry immediately. How can he say it isn't happening? It is happening in plain sight. And I told you it was happening 40 odd years ago in Coventry. And I'll tell you something else. When I saw it happening, it wasn't just people of brown skin who were indulging themselves, shall we say. I was 11 at the time, by the way, 12. It was major figures in society. Major figures. It's a sick, sick world. But I ain't going to stop. I'm going to carry on talking about it. And I hope you are too. Hope you enjoyed the live show. If you are enjoying it, please tell me. Get onto YouTube. Leave some good comments for me, please. Or even if it's a negative comment, I don't really mind. Say what you want to say. Or follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook. It's John Gaunt. Gaunt. And if you can help out, because I'm not getting paid for this. I've not got a sponsor yet. I think I will do soon. because they're bloody good, you know. And I say things that many people would be too scared to say, but then I ain't got anything to lose on one level. So if you can support me, it's www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. That'd be good. Thank you. And if you want to sponsor the show, if you're a business owner and you think, yeah, I wouldn't mind giving a leg up. I'm not saying you're going to sell a hell of a lot of Disney ties or whatever it is by sponsoring me, but maybe you've got more money than sense and you'd like to just back somebody who's saying what you're thinking. Maybe. All right. Until I speak to you again, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, hey, hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. See you later. Thanks.